Well, guys, welcome to the deep, dark dungeon of our food storage basement and where we're starting off today's video because I'm leaning on top of my freezer. And as you know, we have more freezers than we should have running in the middle of winter. But I'm bracing myself right now on our fourth freezer just in case I fall through the floor because it's going. There's a hole in the wall behind the freezer you can see here, so that's going. And we've been very lucky this year and the weather has not turned too bad, but recently it's gotten cold. And that fourth freezer that we have running outside in the shed, which a tree just fell on yesterday in a windstorm, is at its limits, I guess you could say. It needs to be shut down. We need to get everything out of it and get all that inside. Now, I will show you what's in there. We've got meat, tomatoes, lizard food, which is a whole nother story. But we need to get this stuff out of here. And so with that, we are starting the December 2024 freezer challenge. That is something that I look forward to every year because every year I want to eat out of the freezers. And that brings me to today's subject, which is we're finally going to make that Fiesta Corn Relish because I've been collecting corn in the freezer off and on for almost a year now, and I need it on the shelf because, as you can see, the spot where it's supposed to go is empty. Now, at first glance, it doesn't look too bad for us, really. I mean, there's room in here, and I just got this big turkey. So I think we're not doing too bad going into the eating out of the freezer and pantry season. We definitely have a lot of food, but there's a lot in here that needs to be used up, put into cans, basically just used so that we can get rid of that fourth freezer. But today we're looking for corn. So join me on the search. And now we start the part that I cannot stand about freezers. Moving things around in the Jenga mess to find what you're looking for. But luckily I knew this corn wasn't too far down because I just bought it. As many of you know, sweet corn is not something that we grow here. We have had no luck with that, battling raccoons and everything else that goes along with sweet corn. So we grow popcorn, but that means we are purchasing our sweet corn. And I have been purchasing corn and it gets buried down in the freezer for months now saying I wanted to make this Fiesta Corn Relish. And now is the time because, wait for it, we are down to the last of our sad looking peppers from the garden this year. It's December, I think it's the 11th, it might be the 12th, but that's not too bad considering we haven't done anything with these. They've just been down here in the cool pantry. And I know the ones that were getting quite ripe have gone a little bit shriveled, but they are still perfectly fine. We've been using them in omelets and stuff. But I'm going to focus on these nicer guys here and we're going to get these chopped up because my recipe for my Fiesta Corn Relish needs 4 cups of corn and a half cup of finely chopped peppers. So that's where we're at. We're going to get this stuff upstairs and we're going to get busy on this recipe. So in typical Stephanie and Hickory Croft Farm fashion, we are 2 days later and finally getting around to making this corn relish. And I will be honest with you, the only reason it's probably getting made is because I defrosted the corn and got it into the pot that day. So it's still got a few little frosty bits, but all in all, it needs to be done. So that's why we're here. That's why we're doing it. Also, in typical Stephanie fashion, we aren't just doing one batch. I am tripling this recipe here. So I have 12 cups of corn in this pot so that we can just get this job done. That'll be a good year's supply, if not more than that, of the Fiesta Corn Relish. So let's get going. I will show you what's in this and we will get it made up. It is such a simple recipe to make, and that is why I love it. It's bung everything in the pot, heat it up, bung it into jars, water bath can it, and you're done. That's it. So pay attention because it's going to all happen really quick. So we should start off mentioning this recipe comes out of one of my favorite books for canning. This, along with my ball preserving book, basically are my go-tos when it comes to canning. There's a few other ones that I've got a recipe here or there, but to be honest, these are ones that I reference a lot when it comes to canning season. So in this recipe, Obviously, they're geared towards using fresh corn, but there is the option to use frozen corn. You want 5 to 6 ears of fresh corn or 4 cups of frozen corn. So that is where we've started. We put our corn into the pot. Next thing we need to do is cut up all of our peppers because we need 1/2 cup of finely chopped red peppers for each batch. Therefore, I need 1.5 cups, and that's where we're going to start. All right, so another item that this recipe calls for is green onions. We need 1/3 cup of green onions per batch. Now, this time of year, I did go out and check with wishful thinking that as the snow has melted, my green onions and shallots out there might still be usable, but they're not. So as an alternative, I'm going to try out using some garlic scapes. Now, the challenge to the garlic scapes is I need to find them in the freezer. Now, I'm positive I have a bag of them in this upstairs freezer. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you just how bad it is. Like I said, the freezer challenge is just going to have to get underway in full force. So it is organized. I'm going to call it that. Really, we've just been throwing more and more stuff on top. You know us, we're avid buyers of fruit when it is on sale, especially fruits like the tropical things and mangoes and stuff that we cannot produce here ourselves. But it looks like I'm going to have to dig to find these scapes, so wish me luck. I'm really not sure how far I'm going to have to go. What is this? Nope. Apparently it's not on this side of the freezer, so I'm gonna have to try the other side. Okay, so I wasn't able to find them out of that freezer. I am going to keep going strong and I'm going to try the downstairs freezer and see if they are in there, but this may just end up a miss. And this is, again, one of those reasons why I need to work at getting these freezers organized and figuring out what's in here, because I know these scapes are here somewhere. They are from 2023. They're not even from this year. We didn't freeze any this year because we knew we weren't going to need them because we still had ones from 2023. So hopefully I can find them because I think they'd be a great addition to this Fiesta Corn Relish. All right, guys, I have admitted defeat. I cannot find them. I know they exist. They've got to be somewhere in there, but I do not have the time right now to pull everything out of the freezer and start an organization video, or even an organization without a video. So I am opting for our dehydrated scapes. Now, I'm not going to use too many of these because I've not done this before and I don't want it to be anything negative, but I am going to do, say, maybe 1/2 cup or so, and we'll just grind them up a little bit in our coffee grinder so they're not such big pieces. They're pretty big pieces still, so we definitely need to grind them up a little bit, but we're going to put 1/2 cup of them in. I think it'll work just fine. They'll rehydrate as we go. So without any further procrastination, let's get to the recipe here. All right, so we're starting our recipe off with our 12 cups of corn. To that, we are going to add our 1.5 cups of onions, red onions, 1.5 cups of our red peppers, 6 cloves of garlic, all chopped up. Now I ground up 1/2 cup of garlic scapes in substitute for those green onions that you would need. The recipe also calls for 1 hot yellow pepper. I ground up a couple of our Aurora peppers. That's going to be spicy. 3 teaspoons of our cumin. 3 teaspoons of pickling salt. 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. Now remember, I am tripling this batch, so I will put a single recipe in the description below. Now I use dried cilantro. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of fresh, so I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of dried because I am tripling. Now I need 4.5 cups of apple cider vinegar, so I'm going to put that whole liter in, plus another 1/2 cup. Now the last ingredient that we need to add to this is, you guessed it, sugar. And as many of you know, I am watching my sugar intake. So each recipe requires 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So in total, I would need 2 1/4 for this full 3 times batch. Now, I'm not going to be putting that in because I'm going to substitute some of my sugar for stevia powder. So I operate on basically a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of stevia powder. This is like the green powder. I'll show you here. There you see it, beautiful green, that we just ground up after we dehydrated the stevia that we've grown out in the garden. So I find 1 to 1.5 teaspoons equals about a cup. So my plan is I'm going to remove 1 cup of sugar. So we're going to only do 1 1/4 cup of sugar into this, and then the rest is going to be the stevia powder. So this is an experiment. We haven't tried this before because it's been 2 years since I've made this, and I haven't had to watch my blood sugars in the past back then. So I probably should have been watching them, but I wasn't. And so we're going to do this up. I think it's going to taste fantastic because this stevia really does have a lot of bang for its buck. Anyways, that was a horrible one, but you know what I mean. So we're going to put in our sugar. And then basically what we need to do now is just bring this to a boil. It needs to simmer for 20 minutes. And while that's happening, we're going to get our jars into the oven so they can sterilize. And I know somebody's going to tell me because it needs to be water bath canned for 15 minutes, you don't need to sterilize your jars. But I still operate on the fact of if it's not broke, don't fix it. And those jars should really be warm before I put in the hot liquid anyways. So I'm heating them up no matter what. So we're going to sterilize them. All right, so we are about 3 minutes away from being able to jar this up. You can hear it and see it. It's bubbling away like mad, and it is going perfect, I think. Now, I am going to do a quick taste test on this because, like I said, I had cut out some of that sugar and put in the stevia instead, and I just want to make sure that the flavor is still pretty close to the same, because this is something that I really, really like for when I make egg salad or potato salad, and I prefer for it to have a certain flavor. Now, granted, this hasn't had time to, quote, pickle, so it's not going to taste exactly the same, but I just want to make sure the sweetness level is there without that extra sugar in it. So it's going to be stinking hot. I know it. Oh, yeah. That's good. That's really good. I know it seems weird to kind of try and throw stevia in wherever we can, but anywhere that we can start cutting some of the sugar, maybe not all of the sugar, but some of it, really, really does help in the long run. So this is another area, like with my dressings and things like that, that a little bit of stevia does go a long way. Gosh, that's so good. Here we go. Now you want to leave a 1/2 inch headspace on these. And there you can see that 1/2 inch, it's perfect. Get one of our pre-soaked lids. I do find that soaking them does make a huge difference in the seal, especially on some of those lesser quality lids. And then from there, we just go into the water bath canner. And then from this point, it's rinse and repeat. All right, so we are all packed up. Everything's in the canner, and we did amazing. 13 half-pint jars in the canner and a partial full pint jar here. I could have got another half pint, but I wouldn't have got it in the canner. I would have had to have done another batch. Plus, I was a little shy on liquid, actually. Maybe it needed a little bit more apple cider vinegar in there, but it's okay because we're just going to tuck this in the fridge and we're going to use it up pretty quick because, as you know, I have been without Fiesta Corn Relish for months and months, and I miss it. So it will probably disappear quick. To be honest, I'm actually debating, and I know this seems silly because I just did 13 jars, but I'm actually debating doing another round. And the reason for that is because I still have those peppers. They're deteriorating quite quickly, and I don't need more peppers in the freezer. So I think I might just plunge ahead and do another one just to have it on the shelves. I'm not going to feature that or anything, but I think that's what I'm going to do. But first, I need to dig through the freezers and see if I have the corn already before I go purchase more. And I think that is the moral of this video, is the freezers are a problem again. I cannot find anything, and we just keep piling on top instead of dealing with what's at the bottom. So stay tuned because we are going to keep going with this. This is the beginning of the freezer challenge for 2024, 2025, and hopefully we can get the freezer outside dealt with, the tree that fell on the building dealt with, and organize ourselves inside to be better prepared to use what we have.